Hello and welcome to ThePrint. Today I'm going to interview somebody who actually everybody almost knows. He has more than 3 million subscribers on Spotify. And we know him the most for that iconic song that I think most of us cried to or maybe felt nostalgic about, Cold Mess. And that is just one of the many things that he does. He's just kickstarted his tour that is going to span 15 cities in 2 months, if I'm not wrong. And The Way That Lovers Do, which has 11 tracks, and they are all written by you. So welcome, Prateek Kuhad, to ThePrint.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us about this tour, because I think this has been a long gap after which you're touring India, specifically, and these many cities.
Yeah, especially at this scale. We did a small 4-5 city tour last year in 21.
Right.
But it was much smaller. I mean, there was still some COVID restrictions, so they were pretty smaller, much smaller, like 600, 800,000 people. This time it's just much bigger rooms. Everybody's just, coming out now. Finally things are just like fully back to normal. So since 2019, this is my first real big proper India tour. 15 cities. We've done 3 already. We did Pune, Bombay, and Hyderabad, which were all really, really fun. So I'm super excited. And yeah, there's shows every single weekend. I'm playing shows till mid-December, basically. So every weekend I just like fly off.
Okay. And this is Delhi now, this weekend, if I'm not wrong?
This weekend is Chandigarh in
Chandigarh,
Delhi. So I'm
okay.
playing Chandigarh tomorrow night, actually. And then I'm back in Delhi, and then I play Delhi on Sunday.
Okay, so since this has been a tour after some gap, and like you said already, and this has been what a lot of artists are saying, that it feels amazing to be back in the middle of people when there are no restrictions, and that they can also enjoy. Like, you're not worried about, I might catch COVID if I go to this show. So what has the crowd response been like in your shows so far, 3 that you've done?
Really good. I mean, it's been really good. The energy is just, I think, even more now, because I think everybody's been really starved for just going out and events and shows and just everything, right? I mean, all of it stopped for so long. So now the audience is thrilled to be back. We're all thrilled to be back as performers, back on stage, just everybody, me and my team, we're just all super excited. And super, super grateful that, like, we can just get back into it and do what we love doing. So it's a good all around, like a good energy,
Okay. So actually, I'll come back and ask you, because you are one of the most recognizable indie music stars for India. For a lot of people, actually, people who even love music, indie music still feels like, what is this? Like, if I go around and ask, okay, do you know what indie music is? I think they're not very sure of what it is. I think, unfortunately, for a lot of us, we still understand that, Bollywood playback music is the only music that exists in India. And yet, which I also mentioned in my introduction, that you have like more than 3 million subscribers on Spotify. And streaming, I have been told, has been a really good platform for, indie musicians. So can you tell us more about that, like how the platform has worked and how it has been in your journey?
I think it's a bit misunderstood. I wouldn't really call it a platform.
Right.
I think it's an idea in people's head, more than anything else. And I think, see, the newer generation of people and just actually my generation and before that and stuff, not before that, but after that, I guess, like just me, everybody my age and younger, especially people who have grown up on social media and grown up with the internet all around them, with access to all the music everywhere in the world all the time, right? I mean, that's what we're used to now, because we have YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, whatever, like Geo, Ghana on our cell phones. So we can just listen to anything, and nobody, and that whole group of people does not care whether it's Bollywood or if it's like K-pop or if it's like indie music in India or outside or like, an Australian singer-songwriter or a jazz band from like Africa. Like, nobody cares. So it's just good music at the end of the day. And indie is very misunderstood. Why I was saying was because now it's like there's a lot of indie musicians who, have much bigger audiences, play much bigger concerts, and have much more popular songs than like half the playback singers out there in Bollywood, because there's just so many. So it's a much more level playing field now in that sense. I mean, Bollywood is still the biggest when it comes to the masses.
Right.
And of course, like in terms of numbers, it's just way bigger. But now there's just a whole bunch of like, people in cities who are, just have a more diverse taste in music. and they're not really concerned with the tags of what indie music is or what Bollywood music is. They just want to listen to good music. So that's the main thing, and that's what I'd like to tell everybody also in general, that just, you know, listen to good music. I mean, it's all there on your phone. It's
Right.
on like whatever streaming app or like YouTube or whatever you want to listen to music on. All of it is there. There are playlists, there's like information, like there's just, you just have to go there and like find whatever you like. I mean, you can listen to everything together. You know, you can listen to Bollywood and you can listen to like independent songwriters and like hip hop and like bands and whatever you want. And that's what I think people should do.
So would you say, taking on from what you just said, like would you say that just like OTTs did for like a lot of actors,
Yeah.
it made a very level playing sort of feel, a more democratic space. Like you also mentioned, like K-pop, which became huge. Like it had
Yeah.
always existed actually in pockets, but
Yeah.
now suddenly it's like out there. Everybody's listening to it. K-dramas they are watching a lot, and also regional stuff that probably would never have come out earlier
Yeah.
because of these platforms.
Yeah.
Would you say that that has also helped people develop actually a better taste in music? Because like you said, now I can just listen. I just have my phone. I don't have to wait for a song to come out on TV, because that's how it used to function earlier.
Yeah.
Right? You have to wait, even if it's a film song, I have to first wait for the song to come out and then I'll know what's happening. But here,
Yeah.
I want to know, what's happening, and I can go to one of these platforms. And also, they're relatively less expensive for people. Like earlier, it used to be like, let's say me growing up, I would be like, I have to wait for that CD to come out and I'll buy. Like if I'm really invested, I have to wait for that CD to come out. But now I don't have to, right? Like every month, I'll have something. Also, how different is it writing for Bollywood and creating music on your own? Like I wanted to just know more about that.
Yeah, I mean, just to touch on like your point earlier also, if I may for a second. It's actually interesting you brought up the OTT stuff, and actually this thing about democratizing access to media is not just music, but it's like film. It's also like journalism, right? Like, I mean, it's just
Right.
everything, right? Because now suddenly you don't have a bunch of so to say oligarchies like controlling who gets to see what, right? Because till the internet came around, it was a group of people at the top of like media in general, whether it's like TV or music or like media, news and stuff. Like everything was a group of people who would decide what would be on, what would not be on, what would get released, what would not get released. Now it's like I can choose to like put out a song and people can just listen to it. Like there's no middleman suddenly all of a sudden, right? And that's just like now grown and grown and grown. And it's a bit of a mixture right now to some degree, but it's really like just done that everywhere, which is incredible because that's how it should be. Like people should be able to listen to whatever they want and as much of it or as little of it. So anyway, I mean, I think it's a really cool thing. I'm really excited for the future of this world in general when it comes to media of all sorts. And then to answer your second question, like with the Bollywood stuff, for me, like my writing process is just my writing process. It's just the same. And a lot of people think, or I also think like my career has been unique in Bollywood in the sense because I started off first as a just putting out my own music and I kind of built my own name on that, and it was much smaller, but I still had a sizable fan base even back in like 2016. I was still playing shows of like 1,000 people in like the bigger cities, and I had fans. So and I was a bit known, so a lot of directors started coming to me and other musicians started coming to me who were actually seeking me, instead of the other way around where it actually happens. Especially when you start off in Bollywood, you need to actually go and like knock on doors and build relationships and really like pitch your songs a lot. Like I never really pitched a single song to any film or any director ever. I mostly had directors and producers and stuff who were already fans and wanted to work with me and wanted my kind of music, right? So I never had to really change my writing style, which also it gave me a lot of creative freedom because I always had the upper hand because I was not the one seeking, right? I was not the one trying to get a project. I was the one just like asked to do something, and it was up to me to say. And I also said no a lot usually because if it didn't fit my like, and it was not from a place of like arrogance or anything, but just the fact that like if like I have a specific skill set, right? I have a specific way of writing songs, which I do really, really well in terms of how I write and how I produce and my sensibility. And then if I go too broad out of that, I can do it, but I won't do a good job. So I didn't want to take up anything I couldn't do full justice to. And that's why it was a few things that I did, and they were really easy to work with. The directors were fans already. We already had there was already mutual respect starting off, you know.
Right.
So that makes it again a level playing field. You just respect each other as artists and like collaborate in a healthy way, which is how it should be. So, I mean, long, you know, that's a really long answer to your question. It's like I write the same way.
So I've actually asked you already about your way of writing and what goes behind it. So the songs that you've written for Bollywood are not the usual fare that we see. It has a certain sense of pause. It has a certain sense of weighing in on what is being said in those songs. And you've written 3 songs for Bollywood. The rest is your independent work, which is loved, right? So I want to know what goes behind the thought process of writing a song like that, which sometimes we say that the Gen Z is a generation that doesn't like to wait. You know, it that's why I probably we even on Instagram we have a 15-second reel because that's literally the attention span of people. They want a song that's fast that you can dance to. There are these parameters already. But your songs still have been able to pull in people and they want to listen. Do you think there's some sense of generation gap that comes in, or do you think, like you had already mentioned, that good music is good music? It doesn't have to be age specific, it doesn't have to be genre or demography specific.
Yeah, I don't. Well, when it comes to me writing my songs, I just write them. Like really. I mean, I've grown up listening to a certain kind of music. I have certain thoughts. I have ideas of my own. It's just what makes me. It's my life and my experience makes me who I am.
Right.
And and when I write songs, I just try to like do that really, like talk about myself in some sense in every single song I write, right? Because ultimately, even if it's not personal, like the 3 Bollywood songs, for example, the Karma songs and Kho Gayam Kahan, it's got nothing to do with me. I've written a song about a character in a film and stuff, but ultimately, like the ideas I'm putting in there, at least I'm philosophically, like agreeing with them. I'm only putting them down because I agree with it. I'm not gonna write about stuff I disagree with to a certain beyond a point, or maybe like never. So when it comes to what you're talking about in terms of the kind of stuff I'm writing about or the pause and stuff, that just naturally happens, I guess, because I'm just a certain kind of a person. I don't know about the Gen Z stuff because I have a lot of like Gen Z fans.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's a generational thing or what. And I think things keep changing. I mean, I've always believed, this is my belief about music and genres and this whole thing in general, that it's not really a genre that gets popular. It's a group of people that really believe in a genre and they make it popular. That's just, if you look at trends of look at like the past 10 decades of music, it's just always every single movement that's become popular, you trace it back, it goes down to a group of like people who started this somewhere and who was just in crazy and talented and amazing and just spent their entire life trying to like push an idea forward, and that idea became that genre. So whether it's like EDM or like hip hop or like grunge, any of this which became a movement and became the popular genre of a couple of decades, was because if you take it back 10 years, there's like, it started off as a smaller movement and a niche movement, and then it grew and then it grew and then it got wind, and then it just suddenly like is what everybody loves. So that's just the same thing. It's like, and why it became like that was because it was really good. Ultimately, whatever it is, whether it's like, silly dance videos on TikTok or like, a really cool classical piece from somewhere, and it's just it really just people. And also I don't think kids or older people or whatever just people don't just listen to one kind of music. Like most people actually listen to multiple kinds of music. They listen to dance tracks when they're out and dancing. They listen to like really chill acoustic stuff when they're at home on their headphones, like sleeping, or at a chill house party when they're having a conversation, or sometimes just for listening. And it's just, most people have actually pretty varied stuff, ideas of what they listen to, and like varied choice in music depending on the context. So it's not really just like this or that. You know, with some people it's like that, but with a lot of people it's like you just listen to good stuff, you know.
So, coming back to your tour and coming back to this particular 11 tracks that you wrote. So, what has been that journey like? What has been the inspiration? And because it's a very interesting title, I felt like the way that lovers do. I remember like when I looked it up and I'm like, okay, this is very interesting. And this is what has been said. Like, if it's the first thing that comes to my mind, the first adjective that comes to my mind, I think for your work, I think it's interesting, it's unique. Like I already said, like for a lot of us who watched Cold Mess, like the video, like obviously the video is in our head, but also like the way it was structured. I don't think we'd ever seen anything like that before. Like we're so used to seeing stars, we're so used to seeing people that when we saw just hands going and then, you know, a particular kind of setup going, I think a lot of us were not even prepared. People who were already aware of a certain kind of music, maybe they were. But when it broke, like you said, that you were somebody who sort of had a unique journey in terms of how people received your music also. Like it was, yes, it was unique. It had its own way and sensibility, but it was also immediately popular music, like which don't usually happen always, right? That usually you have a niche audience and then there's a popular, and we think that these two are not, that cannot go together, right? So I wanted to know the special bit about this particular tour and the songs, and also like what was in your head when, you know, Cold Mess sort of became so huge. Like everybody at one point I remember was listening to it and they just couldn't stop. It was not just they were listening to it. I think they just couldn't stop listening to it. So
uh, uh, so which part of your question do you because you said a lot of things.
whichever.
I think I don't think it was very unique. I think it was just really good, honestly. Firstly, and this thing that you're saying about this distinction is interesting because I thought about it a lot when I started doing this.
Right.
And I always believe that like it doesn't make any sense. Like why would something really good not be popular? And why do we have this idea in our head that something has to be a song or a film or whatever has to be a certain way for it to be popular. It just has to be good, right?
Right.
Basically, it doesn't have to be a certain genre or a certain aesthetic or a certain like subject that it's talking about, right? And I think we have these things in our head, and I just when I started, I was just like, that doesn't make any sense. Like I think you can make really good stuff, and it can get really popular because if it's good, why won't it get popular? You know. So I just always had that ideology, and I really believe in the power of just intention. Like I think like everything that happens and we build around us and our lives are just it comes from this really deep place of just conviction to some degree. And when I started, I was just like, you know, this doesn't make sense. So I think it can happen. It was just like I was open to the idea.
Right.
But again, I don't think it's very unique. I think it's just I kind of stuck to the I wanted to portray the song more than anything else from the video. You know, I
Right.
wanted to portray what is the feeling behind the song, and it's hard to put into words because it's not something specific, right? It's just this feeling overall of what this song and the words and the story and the philosophy behind it communicates. And I wanted that to be what the video communicates as well, to double down on that and really push that idea forward of what that central idea of that song is and what that feeling is when you see it. And I think it's just everything came together. I think this is one of those things where maybe it's luck, maybe it's chance, but I just met the right filmmakers, we got the right actors who came on board. I had the right concept for it. The song was really good. It got recorded by the right producer. Just everything came together with that. It didn't feel like that back then when I was doing it, in every respect. But you know, it did. When I look back at it, especially even when everything was ready, I was just, oh wow, like I've managed to pull together a really great team that everybody loved the song and everybody was invested into it. And every now and then stuff like that happens, and then magic just really happens, honestly. So and then yeah, so it was great. Like that was a great year for me, and I'm really proud of that EP. Over the pandemic, then I put out this EP called Shehron Ke Raz, which did really well, and then this coming to like The Way That Lovers Do, which is my album I put out earlier this year in May. and this is I usually write my albums in a similar way, in the sense I keep writing on the road. I just write songs every day at home or when I'm traveling, whenever I get the chance, and I just collect them. And then I need a few months to like get away from it and not listen to it, and then come back to it, and then kind of judge that what's good, what's not, what's going to work for a record, all of that. What do I want to release, basically? And then I pick from that and make an album. And that's pretty much what I did with The Way That Lovers Do. It was through the pandemic, so it was a little challenging just to travel and do everything and get things happen. So things were a bit slow. But I spent a good like 2 months in Seattle at the studio called Bear Creek. I worked with a producer called Ryan Hadlock, who's made some of my favorite records. It's pretty crazy when it happened. Like I was pretty excited because like the Lumineers recorded at the studio and Ryan produced the whole record. And the Lumineers, have you heard of this band? It's a US based band. Like their first album is one of my favorite. Like I looped it when I was in New York, basically, when it came out. So it's just, it's special for me, and I'm really proud of the album. It's 11 songs. It's about the idea of being in love more than anything else, and just not from the sense of loving somebody or something, but just I think the idea I'm trying to talk about a little bit around the record is something that occurred to me through the process, is that I think we tend to, in general as society, look down upon romanticism and passion to a certain degree. You tend to dismiss somebody who's too romantic, and romantic about anything, could be about like the idea of the world or philosophy or like people or just relation, anything, right? Just the idea of romanticism tends to be looked at as impractical and silly, right? And I think it's something that in fact we should be embracing, because love really just actually brings people together and brings out a lot of compassion and kindness in people, and it's a really good thing. So that's why it's The Way That Lovers Do, like live your life as a true lover would, so to say. And that's what the album's about, and that's what we're trying to promote with the store.
Okay. This is the last question that I have. So there was a time when obviously social media, for example, Instagram or Twitter did not exist. And even if they did, like our access to probably stars of any kind, be it singers, be it actors, be it producers, would be through what tabloids are saying about them, their relationships, or, oh, this person went here on a tour. But now, like you also pointed out, that there's no middleman even in that kind of access, where if you're putting out a photo of yourself, I can immediately go like, so what has the feedback been like? Like I understand it's also music, but let's say if you're putting out something on your Instagram, I'm sure there are people immediately commenting. And so has the feedback changed its way? Or do you think it's more easier to understand the pulse of the audience because they're engaging with you across multiple platforms in every way possible?
It's a golden question. I mean, it's a really good question. I don't know the answer to be completely honest. It's a tricky one because you're right. I don't think it was ever very easy to get a sense of or get a pulse of what people like. And sense that's what you're trying to ask, right? But I think it makes it a little easier maybe because you do get direct feedback, but at the same time you don't get like accurate feedback, right? Because there's a lot of like trolling, but at the same time there's also like super fans, and they will just love everything that you do. So you put out a photo and you get like 300 comments of people with hearts and being like, wow, I love this. But they're all your super fans, so obviously they're going to say that. So that's not actually realistic or representative. Like 300 people is too small a sample size to be really representative of the whole population, or like even a large group of people in that matter. Also, things keep changing. Like the people who are on social media keep switching, because I think it's also a bit generational. Like I've seen it from the beginning to now. So it's like I'm not on social media that much anymore personally. It started off this small thing with friends and friends and friends and friends of friends, right? And it grew into this massive thing where everybody's on it now. But I think like in general, and I might be wrong about it, but this is the sense I get from just my friends and people around me and stuff. And I'm in my early 30s, and it seems like when you're a bit older, you tend to be less on social media compared to when you're younger. So you know what I mean? Like the group of people who are the most active on these platforms also will change every 5 years, as it has in the past 5 years. Like because you have time and a certain inclination to be on social media when you're in like 22, but by the time you're 30, like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, you're not gonna do a lot of the things you were doing back then. So it's hard. It's still really hard to, like, if any of us were able to answer that question, then we'd just, like, things would be easier. But I don't know.
No, I know I said the last question, but because you mentioned trolls,
Yeah.
I just want to just ask about it. So I know that it's very difficult.
Yeah.
Like, I have barely a few followers, and if somebody says something, I'm going to be thinking
Yeah.
about it like for 4 days. I'm like, okay, what did I do?
Yeah.
And I have this urge to probably even engage. And then everybody will be like, no, don't engage. So how has it been like dealing with trolls?
I mean, it's been a process, initially I used to feel like that. Now I just don't feel anything, actually, because it's you have to realize that trolls are not people who are criticizing you, firstly.
Okay.
There's criticism is actually good, right? I mean, I actually encourage criticism from, the people I work with and my friends and my family. Like, I want to know what I'm doing wrong. I want an open channel of communication. So if I'm screwing up somewhere or doing something which is not good for me or not good for somebody else, you don't realize that's the whole thing, right? We're all humans and we're going to fail and we're going to be imperfect at times. So I want to know from everybody that what happens, right? But it's just somebody who doesn't know you well enough and doesn't have your best interest in their hearts is not the right person to take criticism or advice from, and that's what really a troll is, pretty much. Like, they don't know you from Jack, they don't know your life, they don't know anything about you. They also don't care about you at all, right? So it's just like, I mean, when you intellectually convince yourself of that and realize that, and that is really the reality, then it just doesn't affect you anymore. And I'm finally come to that place. It took me a while, though. I want to say, like, for the first 3 years, it was just like the same thing. Like, it would ruin my day. If I woke up in the morning and saw something, it would ruin my day. Now I'm just like, So I try to focus on, like, and that's why, like, friends and family, and my family is, like, the most important thing to me, because they keep me grounded, and I know that, like, that's the only people I listen to. The people, immediately around me, my close friends, my family, the people I work with, I have very good relationships with everybody, and that's the only that's the only opinion I really care about, because the world will just, like, it's just.
So I think we can end with that piece of advice for people who are struggling how to respond to trolls. You don't have to; they don't really matter. And this was Prateek Kuhad, who told us so much about music and independent music, and also about the album which was released this year and his tour, which is still going on. So people who've still waiting to catch him live, you should definitely go if there's a chance that he's coming to your city. And thank you so much for coming today and talking to me. Thank you.
Thank you.